Hi, and welcome. Thanks for being here on Live from my office. Anything but politics. That's what we're doing today. The guest coming up here in just a second, Mindy Rickles. Her dad, Don Rickles, you might have heard of him, the GOAT, greatest of all time. Ed Mann, my friend forever, is Mindy's husband, partners in crime. And Ed and Mindy have started a new podcast called Mindy, Ed, and Don Rickles. And they play clips of Don. They talk about life at that point in Don's career. They argue with each other. They bicker. It's highly entertaining. And I insist that you subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I mean, wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get to it. Ed Mann, Mindy Rickles, talking about Don Rickles. The show is called Mindy, Ed, and Don Rickles. They join me for this little conversation about one of my favorites of all time. And I'm not talking about Ed. Here we go. This is live from my office for you regulars, and thank you for being those, whether you're on YouTube watching us or listening on Spotify and Apple and all the other places. We try to do in the early part of the week something called Anything But Politics, because all of us want to drown ourselves with one more political discussion. We can't take it anymore. So I'm lucky enough in life to have some great friends, and two of them are with me now. I've known Ed Mann since we were both in diapers, which was 6 weeks ago.
And I wish somebody would clean up after the fact.
And his lovely wife, Mindy Rickles.
Hello. Hi.
Nice to see you again, man.
So good to see you. I missed you.
I've missed you.
I did.
So
You're not part of this conversation.
I know. I'm trying to get a word. I didn't even say hello. Hi.
It's funny. We're going to be talking about your podcast here, and most of the podcasts, sometimes, well, I shouldn't say most of them, but many of them that I've heard have drifted into Ed going, "Can I talk too?"
Right.
I know.
So,
I can go on a rant.
So let's go. Ed and I come from radio, and we over-promote. So let's over-promote for a second. Ed, tell everybody the name of the show.
It's called Mindy, Ed, and Don Rickles. And Mindy and Ed, of course, at the front. Her dad, oddly enough, in the back. I don't know why that is. But we talk about her dad a lot. And the idea is for the audience is to get introduced to us. We chat about whatever's going on in our lives, interesting or otherwise, normally otherwise. And then we introduce a clip of her dad and talk about that. And the clip is usually, this season of shows we're doing Jimmy Kimmel Live because we have the rights from his production company. They were very gracious. It's really terrific. And they're recent. They're only 15 years old, 10 years old. It's really nice to have that. That's kind of when he started developing a new audience too, thanks to Jimmy. So we're really grateful. But we have that and the roasts, and we do a lot of other stuff to throw on the podcast and talk about that.
And it is available everywhere you get your podcasts.
Everywhere you can find one.
That's right. Yep.
And highly recommended. All biasy aside, I love you guys, and it's just great hearing about it. And you know how much I loved your dad, Mindy.
Oh, of course.
Like everybody did. The interesting thing is, because I heard you guys talk about it separately together, and I may have even heard your dad mention it at one point in a different tenor than he would have said it to you, but the thing about not being forgotten, because there's no way Don Rickles will ever be forgotten. But was that legitimately a concern of his?
Oh, definitely. He was always like, of course, I said this on the podcast, during his life, he was always like, "Did you mention me? Did you tell them who I am?" I'm like, "Dad, it was just me there, but did you mention who you are?" So he always wanted his name
this actually
to be
happened at,
mentioned.
when we go to the doctor, and Mindy would have an issue, and did they mention me?
It's like, Dad, it was me. My therapist's office, talking about you, but it was about me. Yeah. So he always said, "Keep my name alive." That was his little slogan. And I absolutely think that was very important to him to have.
Well, when you guys started talking about doing this show, was that part of the impetus of it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That was a huge part of it. I mean, sure, it's like I love to look at the old clips and we love to talk about them, and we've done that in our lives. And so he was such a huge part of my life. It was like when you have a parent who's a star, it's sort of different than when you grow up in a family and your father's doctor, postman, or whatever, and the focus may be on the kids the focus was on my dad, which was fine. I mean, he loved us and all of that, but he was such a huge part of my life. And after I got married and kids, and then he did Toy Story, and my kids were so
Sure.
excited about that. So it was just like, it made sense. I couldn't imagine not talking about him, and, people mention him, and I want to share it, with other people.
Well,
So
it's a wonderful legacy, and Stamos has been on, and
Right.
I know our friend Bob Saget would have loved to have been
Oh
around to
my
talk
God,
about Don.
absolutely.
You would have
He,
clamored.
he loved him. Yes.
Yeah, and
great.
by the way, stick around when we're done here because we're going to play some clips as well, and just encourage you even more to go. And by the way, if you haven't already subscribed, you're a damn fool, and see a therapist immediately. But one of the things, as I mentioned, one of the things I like is hearing you guys talk. You guys have been married now for a little bit,
Yeah,
About
28
28 years.
years.
and you have
we've
two
definitely
beautiful
known
boys.
each other for 30, yes.
Yeah, 2 great kids.
24 and 27. 2 boys, yes. And
So Mindy, you dated fellas, and
I was going to say, one of them may not be Ed's. No, I'm joking.
he's willing to accept the truth.
Both of them aren't. Let's be honest. Let's really
What a
talk
terrible
about-
way to find out. But when you brought Ed home the first time, and Ed, I'll ask
Right.
you your thoughts too. What did Dad and Mom think of Ed?
Well, they didn't really understand what he did. I mean, to say I'm in radio,
Right.
if he'd said I own a butcher shop, they would have understood that more. But they didn't really get radio, what that was.
Well,
And-
particularly the business of radio, which is
Right.
kind of where
Right.
I went to after I was on the radio as a DJ. Then it was off to the business end, and no one. My mother still does what is it you do? No clue.
Right.
It's this vague thing. So I don't blame them for that, but they might
Right,
have
they were-
inquired a
yeah.
little deeper. But no,
they were
was
like,
it.
"Can you support her?" Because my father was always like, "Once you get married, I absolutely wash my hands of you financially." So that was like a huge thing.
Yeah.
Were
Which
you
people-
able to quietly tell him that Ed's doing just fine?
Yeah. Well, sometimes he would forget.
Oh,
we would
okay.
had like a 40th birthday party for Ed, and my dad, got up and spoke, and he said, "I paid for all this." I'm like, "Dad, you didn't." That was the first time because he was so used to saying, "I paid. Look at what I paid.
Look what I
for.
did.
Look what I did." Right. So when he had to stop saying, "I paid for all this," except he did
listen-
always pay for dinners. He would never,
No,
ever.
he would never accept a
If
dime.
Ed went to pick up a check, he would be so. It would never have happened because he
Sure.
would be
I
furious.
think I tried a couple of times, and he just gave me this look like, "What are you doing?
Are you out of your mind? And I said, "Put it away." Which is what I said on our first date. Also,
Well, the I paid for it thing, I remember vividly at your wedding, which my wife and I loved every second
Right.
of. Your dad standing up and grabbing the microphone and go, "Oh, Mindy's giving me the look. All right, well, help me get up here. Get up here and help me pay for this."
right.
The wedding.
Exactly.
So
right,
you
he
get,
did say that, didn't he?
yeah. But Ed, when you went over, and Ed, you dated a lady or two in your day.
two, sure.
You handsome disc jockey, you.
Yeah.
And
okay.
were you more or less nervous meeting Don?
I really wasn't that nervous about it because by the time I met him, we'd already been dating about 2 or 3 months. So I kind of got to know the deal,
Okay.
And I think it was like in January we started dating. This goes back. And then around March or so, Mindy had already accompanied me to meet my family. She'd already come up. My sister was getting married, so she came up north to San Jose
Sure.
and came to a wedding. So I was already feeling very comfortable with her. And I didn't think, well, I'm not going to have a problem here because she's always spoken so glowingly of her parents. But the dinner was odd. I think I may have related this before to you. I'm not sure if I did it on a podcast. And I think I did it on our podcast, Mindy. But it was Don and Barbara, Mindy's late brother, Larry. There was their longtime business manager, Jerry. There was the owner of the restaurant, whose name escapes me, and maybe some other guy, maybe Tony. So there's like a whole group of people.
Sure.
And as I got to realize, fast forward, this is always the way dinners went. I don't think we had,
Right.
honey, more than a handful of dinners, just the 4 of us.
Oh yeah.
It was always people. So I sat there and I think, this is the dinner. They want to meet me, and it's this big, mishigas going on. And finally, in the middle of the dinner, Don addresses me, and I try to say something funny, and he looks at me like, "Okay, that's good."
Yeah.
Like that's not what you do here. And but yet I felt comfortable, because he was so warm. There was nothing negative.
And I know you had a great relationship with him, throughout all the years until he passed. Yeah.
It was like Sundays just falling asleep watching, football or baseball.
And he'd have to wake you up. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't think it went that way, but yeah.
And what about Mom, Mindy? Was Mom on board right away?
Oh yes. No, she loved Ed. Although she was always, I come from a family where there's a lot of negativity there. It's like this sort of typical Jewish family. So it was like Ed was going to take me, we were going to Paris, and I said to my mother, I think he's going to propose there. My mother's like, "Don't get your hopes up." And I was like, all right, how mother's like, "Oh, that's exciting, blah, blah, blah."
Right.
I don't want you to come home. You're going to be so disappointed, and then you're going to be absolutely devastated. And I can't deal with that, Mindy. You're so... Donald, get on the other line. Donald. Is she going to be devastated? Mindy, I can't take it if you're going to be crying. Don't get your hopes up, okay? Don't get them up. So that was sort of the nature of it. But then when he did propose, then they were thrilled and, happy that things were going to work out. Which,
it was a great phone call. But the phone call, when we finally called your dad, Mindy, we were in France.
Yeah.
And I got him on the phone. He goes, "You're not going to believe this, Ed." I went, "What?" He goes, "We got Shaquille O'Neal."
Yeah. That was
He joined the Lakers.
Let me put your mother on the phone.
Yeah, let me put your mother on the phone. But we got Shaq. We got
Wow.
Shaq. I'm like, okay, great, Don. And then
Yeah.
Barbara came on, and that was it. That was the entirety of the conversation.
Right.
And
But he was
as
happy.
the only grandparent of the three of us here, me, what was he like when the boys were born? And Mom.
Oh, my God.
They were caballing.
all
Yeah.
over them. I mean, they were buying them trampolines and trains that were like the size of the house. I mean, it was
Sure.
ridiculous. It was
Sure.
like, okay, Mom, the gifts can be smaller, more easily put together.
Yeah.
But they were thrilled. The kids did sleep over there once when they were very little, and then I don't know. They came into my parents' bed. My dad, his head was falling off the side of the bed. My mother's leg was up in the air. It was a lot. They had a lot going on, but they did love them. They loved being around them. We would go over there every Sunday afternoon. My dad would be watching the game, and as they got older, but some things were kind of funny because we would go to like Spago or in Malibu, this very fancy, not fancy, but very Hollywood star restaurant, Nobu, the sushi place, of course. So we'd go there, and like Harrison, my younger son, would be like 4. And my dad would be looking over at him, and he'd be like looking up in the air, whatever. And my dad would say to me, "Does he know where he is? He's at Nobu. Is he a little excited about this?" I'm like, "Dad, he's 4. He's 4. Well, I mean, come on, I'm paying for this. He's got to know where he is. He's at Nobu. He's with me." And I was like, "Dad, give him a year, and I'm sure he'll be thrilled out of his mind." So, yeah.
And a year later, he was tipping the maitre d' when he walked in.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, it was always the
5.
tipping. Yeah.
At 5, he was nailing the table before you got there. Yeah,
That's right. I mean, so that was the kind of thing that sometimes he forgot they were little or whatever. But he, no, my parents loved being with my kids.
Well, and that's sweet stories, and that sweetness of those stories just to me reflects the person that the general public didn't necessarily know. Your dad had this miracle thing where he could rip an entire crowd. And I had the pleasure of being ripped by him on stage a couple of times. It's the greatest thrill a comedian could have. But at the end, he always tied it up in a nice bow.
Right.
This is all in good fun. We're all here for and he pulled it off. And Ed, you said it on the podcast many times. And nobody like him, ever. And there never will be anybody like Don Rickles.
No.
No. And there are people who have tried. There's a lot of great comics out there that, try to do that kind of insult thing, and they can't nail it because they don't have the warmth,
And the cool thing was, too, he adapted his act, and a lot of guys didn't. I mean, from his era, I don't know that I could name another as anybody that was able to bring it forward. And you mentioned Kimmel, and you give Kimmel proper credit, but we talked about Saget and Stamos, who was on the podcast in a great episode.
Yeah.
I mean,
which
he worked.
guy.
Yeah, there was never a low point. He worked continuously. There was never a time growing up where it was like, well, Dad's not working. It was he continuously worked up until right before, like maybe 6 months before he died, up to like 90, and the audiences were still there. And they were all different ages. It wasn't like just older people. There were people in their 20s. I always remember that growing up and going to Vegas and sitting in the audience, and my dad would introduce me. But even then, if I was in my 20s, I always remember, my dad was already like, 60s. And there were always young people in the audience that were still so excited to see him.
Yeah.
So that was great. That was always really great to see.
And these clips that you guys are putting on Finding and things, it's not clips that people have everywhere, which I like as well, because I'm as much of a nut for your dad as anybody. I'll stop on every one of the networks, and I can't think of it. Is it Meet TV maybe, or one of the networks runs Carson shows, old Carson shows.
Right.
And if your dad's and I literally, I've got every one of them every night, because I want to flip through and see if your dad's one of the guests, because nobody owned the Tonight Show like Don Rickles.
That's true.
No,
And
that's true.
there aren't shows like that anymore. Nobody it's not like a cocktail party and everyone, stays on the couch and it's my dad and Angie Dickinson and
Burt Reynolds
Fox.
They just all hang out.
Yeah, and it's like a party. And my dad would just go through the line, he would talk to Johnny and then he'd say like, Angie, you slept with them, you know what I'm talking about, or whatever he would say. So it was just, he always brought everyone into the conversation and they loved it and they would be laughing. He always knew how to do it. He could always feel out people. He said to me, to Ed, I think if I wasn't, a comic, I could have been a really good therapist. Remember that, Ed?
Because completely.
He said, I can read people very quickly, which of course he had to do. That was such a huge part of his job, because he had to read these people in the audience. He had to, he didn't have a guy come up, except maybe when he worked in clubs when he was very young starting out. But nobody got up on stage and said, "What the hell are you saying to me?" And,
right.
He knew everybody was going to laugh. And to be able to do that for, 60, 70 years is really unbelievable. And to know every crowd, to pick the right person in the audience to bring on stage, because he would always bring, guys on stage, at least two guys. And he had to know, once in a while, maybe he thought a guy wasn't going to be right and be like, ha, ha, sit down. And then he'd bring another guy up, but he knew who to bring up that was going to be funny in the bit and, all of that.
And it's hard to communicate how hard that is.
Right.
And what an amazing gift that is, because, look, you're very funny. You're a great stand-up, whether you're willing to admit it or not. And you know what it's like. And I still do stand-up. You're on stage.
Of course.
You're doing your act and you're trying to pick people out of the crowd,
right.
And he did it like like one of his favorite Dodgers turned into double play.
That's right. Yeah. He really knew how to do it. So, you don't see that. I don't see that.
No, it doesn't happen. Yeah. So Ed, you and I grew up in a world where we're watching Don Rickles on The Tonight Show. And then you end up and you meet his daughter and you go, oh, I'm going to give her my best Ed Man move and hope for the best here.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
I break out the menorah and a yarmulke, and I go, oh, look.
That's right.
Did you have those pinch yourself moments even after you were, in?
I don't know. I was older. I was already in my late 30s.
Yes,
about
that's
40.
true.
I'd kind of been through a bunch of stuff. I'd, had a
he
number
wasn't
of
like a young guy.
Number of close calls, and things like, well, I'm sure glad I didn't, marry that one, or but and then a number of that, that would have been lovely. But no, I wanted to wait until I knew I was ready.
A number that would have been lovely. Okay.
Well, the number I'm coming up with 7. I'm thinking of the number 7, but no,
I happen to have
that's not true.
I got a pen here. Let's go through the list. Let's go first names only.
There were a number of them that would have been lovely.
A number of them that would have been lovely.
There would have been a number.
Did that come out of my mouth?
Yes.
That would have been lovely.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to say, you didn't let me finish this. But none of them would have been Mindy. None of them would have come
Ah,
close.
there you go.
That's
None of them
right
would have
answer.
come close. And when I met her, it was like,
That's right.
oh, okay. And I'll tell you the thing that really got me. It had nothing to do with her dad, nothing to do with her, the whole star thing. That all to me was just sort of like extra, pepper on the steak.
Sure.
She was the most honest person I had ever gone out with. I mean, I'd gone out with, a number of people. There were a number of friends I had, male friends, whatever. There was never that kind of honesty that I saw with Mindy. Never late to be ready for a date, never canceling for, obvious non-reasons. Here's a girl who suffers from migraine headache. She never canceled because I have a headache. And it was just refreshing. And she would speak her mind about everything, which I guess she got it from her dad. He was very honest.
Yeah. Would you give him credit for that? Is that where it came from?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I think
he was
that's true,
always
yeah.
very honest.
Your
Well,
mother
the
would
thing
put
is-
up a wall or two, but Don never did.
The thing that I also find interesting is I've got a 10-year-old granddaughter now, and I really didn't go through this with my daughter, but my 10-year-old granddaughter, because I'm a goofball, her greatest fear is that I'll embarrass her in front of her friends.
Oh, of course.
And that's a natural thing,
Right.
especially for a girl to go through getting into the mean girls phase and all that,
Oh,
those years. But did you have that with your dad, or did you just
Oh,
go, well,
sure.
it's part of the party, kids?
No, he could definitely embarrass me. I mean, and it would be like when he said I went to an all-girls school, and he would be, "Where are the boys? Are the boys going on this trip, Mindy?" And I'm like, "Dad, remember it's an all-girls school." Yeah, but yes, he could embarrass me for sure, because everyone was like, as soon as he walked in, it became all about him at school or with the parents there, something like that. So it was a very, yes, that was a, sometimes I'd be like, "Dad, please, I don't want everyone." And other times, I have to say, I was very proud. Like when I would go to Vegas, and
Sure.
I would go with a friend, and we'd sit in the audience during the show, and then after the show, Tony O, my dad's, well, yes, later years Tony O, but also Harry, who worked for my dad, Harry Goins, for many years, would come in the audience and bring us backstage, and everyone would be like, "That's his daughter, that's his daughter, that's his daughter, that's his daughter," and I would be very proud, "Look at me, that's my dad," that kind of thing. And he always would introduce me, and he was very proud of me. So I really, yes, I loved a lot of that too. So that was a huge part as well.
I think I may have had an experience with your dad that Ed did not, or maybe before Ed did. I wouldn't go so far as to say I opened for him, but in Detroit and also in Atlantic City, I introduced him, did a little time up front. But before one of those shows, and I can't remember if it was Atlantic City or Detroit first, I went backstage and met Don Rickles without his pants on. And he, had the robe on, appropriate robe. I'm sitting there, and I came back, and I got to know him a little bit after that. I knew him well enough to go, "What's the deal with the pants, Don?" And he goes, "What's the matter with you?" He goes, "Don't you understand show business? The crease in the pants. That's why you don't put the pants on. Everybody in show business knows that." And that's such a great old school show business
Oh,
thing.
absolutely. Yes. He was all about that in the tuxedo. You never see stand-ups wearing tuxedos now, but in those days, I mean, he always wore a tuxedo. And everything, we would travel. This sounds insane, but Ed knows this. We could travel growing up to Las Vegas with 32 pieces of luggage. I mean, that, and it would be trunks of my dad's, tuxedos. And of course, my mother had lots of clothes, but literally 32 pieces of luggage. So when they saw us, the baggage claim, the baggage guys ran. They all spread out in different directions because nobody wanted to deal with that. But yes, my dad was very meticulous about his clothes.
The
Very,
only thing
and he
I
had
saw
the
close
shoe
to that.
horns and the
Oh my
shoe
God, there were shoe horns
stands.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had pants, the hanger for the pants. To keep
Pants
the crease.
hanger. Yeah.
But the only thing I saw close to that, Steve, and you'll laugh at this. Mindy and I were in New York about, I want to say, a year and a half ago. And we were staying at a particular hotel midtown. And this was during the Yankees-Dodgers World Series.
Yeah.
And Freddie Freeman was, he hit the home run, win the game, sort of Kirk Gibson style and all this.
Yep.
And I'm jumping up and down. And Mindy's like, "What the hell's going on?" It's like, "Don't worry about it. It's exciting." The next day, we're in the elevator, and the bellman goes, "Guess who's coming to town? You're from L.A., right?" I said, "Yeah." Certain guys that wore a blue uniform. The Dodgers were coming. They're kind of staying at the hotel. No kidding. Well, later that afternoon, the luggage that
That's right.
remember that
Oh,
comes
of
with
course.
this team.
Sure.
I mean, it was a plane of luggage and then a plane of people. I mean, it was
Sure.
just buckets and buckets. But the one thing I loved was the stacks of Domino's pizza sitting at the
Oh,
front.
yeah, that's right.
Right.
lobby.
They were
Right.
doing
That's
that.
what they were eating.
No, I mean, I grew up room service. The clicking of the wheels on the cart, Steve. That was like a lullaby to me.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
home.
I
That's like home.
loved the room service. Yeah. I mean, it's every little girl's dream to listen to the clicking of the wheels coming down the hall.
That is a great chunk and needs to be in your new act right there.
Yeah.
Or
right
that
there.
that
I mean,
that right
it was
there.
like Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz, the clicking of the heels and the clicking of the wheels. I mean, just magical.
So moving your dad to do a show was like, moving Liza to go
Oh.
to Ralph's supermarket, I suppose. Lots of stuff. But the Rolling Stones probably called at one point and
Oh,
said,
yeah.
"Hey, Don, dial it back a little bit, right?"
Right. Oh, yeah. There was an entourage always. It was like, I was a roadie with the band. Yeah. There were, assistants and
Oh, it was
valet.
And the irony
yeah.
is like a guy like Leno, Saget,
Sure.
whoever, Jeff Ross. They jump on a plane, they land, they do the act, they go home. But not Don Rickles.
No, in those days,
Old school, baby.
That's how it
Old
was then. It was
school.
like, right,
Yeah.
2 shows and dinner between shows at 10 o'clock at night was like a Thanksgiving feast, Everywhere there was a red booth in a hotel, we were
Sure.
sitting in that booth, and someone was tossing a Caesar salad at 12 o'clock at night while we waited to be served. I mean, that was so great to me.
I give your mom and probably gets more credit, but I give your parents credit for you turning out to be this delightful, sweet, normal woman. Easy, Ed.
Thank you.
She's amazing.
Because
She's amazing. No, you're on the money.
because your parents had to have something, because you could have turned out to be such a show business pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's kids you grew up with that took the wrong turn when they got to the fork in the
Oh,
road.
absolutely. Yeah, you hear that all the time. I don't know. I mean, I was, conservative to, I was extreme. I was like a good girl, nice girl, my mother was that way too. She was very elegant. She was very well-mannered. She the house was perfect. I'm not like that. I have to say, I'm disoriented, and Ed does at this point, even though, he's a little older, Ed does a lot.
All right.
Does a
I'm
lot.
little older.
Yeah. But my mother.
Well, let's
yeah.
give Henri, your servant at the house, a little bit of credit as well, because
right.
he's been with you for years.
He has, and he's great. I'm not going to let him go at this point. He's
No,
really
because he's got the
well.
cart with the clicks. We
That's
like
right.
Yeah.
He brings that card in every night.
That's right.
Makes
the
that
cart with the
dinner and
clicks.
brings the card in just to, as my dad would say, just to relax me. Yeah.
We're recording this at about 4:00 Chicago time, which is about 2 in LA, obviously. And your lunch is waiting, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But before I let you go, I got to ask you about another thing that people know, but they don't know. Bob Newhart and your dad were best friends forever.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think about Mel Brooks now with the Judd Apatow
That's right.
doc coming out, the
Right.
99-year-old man, and how close he was to Carl Reiner.
That's right.
Those kind of male friendships, and Ed, you can back this up. As we get older as men, your group of friends, I think, becomes smaller, and your real friends are ever present. You know who they are.
As long
You
as it
call them-
includes you, Steve, that's all I care about.
I'm always here for you.
Okay.
You know what it is? It's you and 5 doctors. Those are the ones I know best at this point. But I was always touched, and I love the relationship with your dad and Bob, because they gave each other shit like buddies do.
Oh, absolutely.
They had tremendous respect for each other, but tremendous
Whoop.
Uh-oh.
Nope, you glitched out, Steve.
love for each other as well. Did you grow up with Newhart? Did you grow up with Newhart more as an uncle than Bob Newhart? Is that how it felt to you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He was Uncle
Yeah.
Bob. That was for sure. My whole childhood, I can't even remember him not being there. We would go to their house every Christmas, and And when their kids were, I mean, we used to go to church with them sometimes, or we would meet them after church on Sunday to go to lunch.
And
I
the
mean, we
taping
were
of his TV
always with
shows,
them.
you'd go out
Taping.
afterwards.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. We'd go to tapings of so many of his shows. I got my SAG card on, one of his shows. He threw me a
cool.
line or whatever. Yeah.
That's
He
cool.
was amazing. And his kids, I grew up with his kids, and I'm still, close to them, which I think is great because my parents, they would travel, as my dad would say on stage, all over the world together. And they had so much fun on these trips. And I mean, you'd see these videos, and I never saw my dad like more relaxed than he was when he was on these trips with my mom and the Newharts, because they just, even though they were so different, they got along so well, and they just had the same sensibility. And they also were very much into their marriages. They both had very long marriages.
Right.
There was no cheating through the years, where the guy goes off to do the shows. I mean, my mother always kept us together. It wasn't like we stayed in LA. My dad went to Vegas for 6 weeks. She would always have us going with them. And if we had to bring our homework or whatever it was in those days, I mean, she always wanted to keep the family together. And and Ginny Newhart, Bob's wife, was the same way with her kids. And they had 4 kids, exactly the same. So they had so much in common. And I think that really brought them together too.
Yeah, it's pretty good grounding. And Ed, I
Importance
consider
of
it one of the
families.
fringe benefits of your marriage that you got to be close to Bob.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
really, yeah. I mean, I consider him not just, the icon that he was and all that, but he was a friend. I mean, he'd seek me out in the middle of parties just to tell me some story. And
Yeah.
one of them, I don't know if I told you this one, I just love this one. But Mindy was, when she was doing her stand up, there were some issues about, geez, are they going to laugh? Are they not going to laugh? And Bob goes, hey, Ed. He would say that in the middle of a loud dinner, but you still hear that voice because it was
Sure.
soft but kind of pierced a little bit.
Cut through, yeah.
It cut through. Hey, Ed. I'm like, what? He's like, I know Mindy was wondering about laughter and stuff at events and things that she does. I did a show, it was in Atlanta, and it was rain or shine. I said, okay. And so he says, well, turns out it was raining. And it was back when you were allowed to use umbrellas as opposed to just raining.
Mm-hmm.
So people all had the umbrellas out, but it muffled all the laughter. So you really couldn't, hear.
Sound went straight up into the umbrella.
It went straight up into the umbrella.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they couldn't hear. I said, well, how did you react to that? He goes, well, every time a joke would hit, I'd see the umbrellas go up and down, up and down, up and down.
That's how he knew.
That is a tremendous
knew.
visual. That is
Isn't
so
that
great.
hilarious?
Right.
Yeah, I said, oh, Bob, that's perfect. I said, next time Mindy does a show, we just need to have them bring umbrellas. And
So
just
the
go
COVID,
around.
the COVID equivalent of that would have been when the mask goes in and out,
That's right. That's right.
right?
That's right.
Wow.
Perfect, Steve. Perfect.
Yeah. That's
Next
Well,
week. Yeah.
I love you guys, and please
Love you,
promote it
Steve.
again. Oh, by the
Love
way,
you too.
I've seen, like I said, I've heard most of them, and I'll hear the rest. And I don't know if you guys plan on doing this, and you don't need me to pitch ideas, but I think your dad, Mindy, and I think you'd agree with this. I think he was really underrated as an actor, and I don't mean just a voice actor.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
he was a terrific actor, and he had support and respect from a lot of people in Hollywood. But I think the general public had trouble separating those two. So I don't know if you're ever going to talk about the acting piece, but I think
Should.
Don Rickles was pretty great.
We should.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
the one
was.
thing, and Mindy, you remember this, when there was an event, I don't know, it was his 70th birthday or 40th anniversary, whatever it was, but Sidney Poitier was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he and Barbara had gotten to know the Poitiers. And Sidney stands up, does a little toast, and says, people don't realize this, but Don is, and this is coming from Sidney Poitier. He goes,
That hack.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
This is an incredible actor.
How about that?
And I got the chills when he said it. Of course, I get the chills whenever he said, the bus is waiting.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
But he that was something else. I mean, that just really, and I could see that Don got emotional about that.
Oh, yeah, for
He
sure.
loved it.
Understandably. Mindy, last word to you. If anybody is on the fence about listening, what do you want to tell them?
I want to tell them that there's a whole world of Don Rickles that you have no idea about. And, forget about your comics of today and all of the woke whatever, but come into this little world and see what really great comedy was all about. And he was a legend, and I just hope that I can continue to bring his name out there and have more people enjoy him, those that loved him, and just keep that going. I think both of us feel that
That's
way.
very sweet.
Absolutely feel that way.
It's very sweet, and I think it's totally appropriate. And I picture your dad in heaven smiling down on you while he occasionally stops to insult the cloud he's on. You call this a cloud? What kind of a cloud is this? Give me the cloud guy. So, all right, Ed, where do we get it?
Get it everywhere. Apple Podcast has them. You got your Shazams. You got your Schlumpies.
Schlumpies is not a great platform. What are you talking about?
Over at Dee Dee's Hero Sandwich Place. You
Sure.
can get them anywhere you get your podcast. Anywhere.
All right, and
Spotify.
many more to come.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Jimmy Kimmel and all the kindness of the Kimmel folks.
Oh man,
For sure.
Stamos, I love hearing Stamos talk about your dad and talk to you guys. That was great as well.
it's great
It's
fun.
great. And we have many more celebrities
Cooking 'em up.
coming on. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to say, but they're coming up. Yep.
Cooking up. I hope you ordered something cold for lunch, Mindy, because I've essentially ruined it. But thank you guys for doing this, and I look forward to having you back.
Who doesn't
Thank
like a cold
you.
burger? Come on.
Oh, tough break. Bad day to order potatoes. All right, you guys, be well.
See you, Steve.
You too.
Again, I don't want to be redundant, but I really like him. Thank you, Ross Cochran, for all the great work you do on Live from My Office and Anything But Politics. If your camera is jumping around on YouTube, I think it's because the guy that's doing the shooting might be drinking again. So sad. But in the meantime, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And thanks for being here. Don't forget to check out my Substack as well. And if you know Substack, then you know what I'm talking about. Happy to have you here. Appreciate it. And spread the word. By the way, a moment for Sean McDermott, the now former coach of my Buffalo Bills. Oh, Bills. Bills. They're going to be okay. They may make a run again next year. But that's for you, Sean. I'm sure you feel better now. Thanks. See you.